I have deeply analyzed and researched the sources and read the reference script thoroughly. I studied its structural rhythm, cold, open on a quiet, spreading trend, the triggering event, the deeper structural problem, 3 ranked solutions, practical migration advice, a fair, non-alarmist close, its punchy, short sentence delivery, its habit of stacking questions and data points back to back, and its trust broken by architecture, not by bad intentions, framing. I also ran fresh research across multiple current sources, including TechTarget, Security Week, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Computer Weekly, and independent 2026 cloud storage review sites to make sure this script reflects where things actually stand today, not where they stood a year ago. Here is section 1. There's a quiet migration happening right now, and it has nothing to do with a new iPhone or a software update nobody asked for. People who have used iCloud for a decade or more. People who trusted it with their family photos, their medical records, their financial documents, and every single backup of every device they've ever owned are pulling that data off Apple's servers and moving it somewhere else. This isn't happening because iCloud is broken. It isn't happening because Apple makes bad hardware or the software is unreliable. It's happening because of something that came to a head in 2025 and, as of the middle of 2026, still hasn't fully resolved. The uncomfortable truth that your files on iCloud are not entirely yours in the way most people assume. Here's what I mean by that. Under standard iCloud protection, your data is encrypted in transit and encrypted at rest. That sounds secure, and against a lot of everyday threats, it genuinely is. But the detail that actually matters is who holds the encryption key. Under standard protection, Apple holds it, which means Apple can, in principle, decrypt your data if a government presents it with a lawful legal demand. And Apple has, in documented cases, complied with exactly that kind of request. Apple's own transparency reports confirm the number of government data requests it receives and responds to every year. It is not zero. It's not even close to zero. So today, we're walking through exactly what triggered this shift, why the structural problem with iCloud's privacy model is bigger than most users realize, and most importantly, 3 specific alternatives that are genuinely safer. Not because a company promises they are, but because of how they're actually built. And if you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story we dig into. Real privacy shifts happening right now, explained without hype and without fear-mongering, so consider subscribing before we get into it. Let's start with the event that did more damage to trust in iCloud than anything in the company's history. In January 2025, the UK Home Office issued a secret legal order to Apple, using a mechanism called a technical capability notice under the Investigatory Powers Act, a law critics have long nicknamed the Snoopers Charter. This wasn't a polite request, it was a legal compulsion, and what it demanded was staggering. According to reporting from the Washington Post that broke the story, the UK government wanted Apple to build a mechanism that would let British authorities access encrypted iCloud data belonging to any Apple user anywhere in the world, not just UK residents, not just criminal suspects, anyone, including US citizens, including you if you use iCloud. Apple was boxed into 2 bad options. Build a backdoor into advanced data protection, the strongest tier of iCloud encryption Apple had spent years developing and marketing as the gold standard of cloud privacy, or pull that protection out of the UK entirely, rather than weaken it for everyone on the planet. On February 21st, 2025, Apple chose the second option. Advanced data protection was disabled for new UK users immediately, and existing UK users were told they'd eventually have to turn it off too. That meant iCloud backups, iCloud Drive, photos, notes, reminders, Safari bookmarks, voice memos, and several other categories of UK user data lost their end-to-end encryption overnight. The reaction from the security and privacy community was immediate and blunt. The Electronic Frontier Foundation called it a threat with global implications. Access Now said the UK government had made its own citizens less safe and less free. Apple itself, in an official statement, said it was gravely disappointed. Here's where the story most people know actually gets more complicated, and it's the part that a lot of coverage from mid-2025 completely missed because it hadn't happened yet. In August 2025, following direct diplomatic pressure from senior US officials, reports circulated that the UK had agreed to drop the original worldwide order. That sounded, briefly, like the end of the story. It wasn't. According to reporting from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Apple never actually re-enabled advanced data protection for UK users after that announcement. Why? Because the UK government hadn't dropped the demand. It had simply rewritten it, narrowing the order so it applied only to British users instead of everyone worldwide. Apple challenged the revised order through the Investigatory Powers Tribunal, and according to Computer Weekly's ongoing coverage, that tribunal dismissed Apple's appeal after the government revised the scope of its demand. As of where things stand, In 2026, UK residents still do not have access to advanced data protection, and organizations including Privacy International and Liberty are continuing separate legal challenges into the case. So let's be precise about where this actually leaves things, because precision matters here. This was never really resolved. It evolved into a narrower, quieter version of the same fight, and the UK government is currently winning it. If you're a UK-based Apple user right now in the second half of 2026, your iCloud data has less protection available to you than users in most other countries, and that has been true in one form or another for well over a year. Now, why should anyone outside the UK actually care about this? Because of what it revealed, not about one country's laws, but about the entire iCloud privacy model everywhere. The protection advanced data protection offers is conditional. It's conditional on Apple choosing to maintain it under legal pressure. It's conditional on no government successfully compelling Apple to narrow or weaken it. And we just watched in real time across an entire year and a half exactly how fragile that condition can be. Even for a company with Apple's resources and its public, we will never build a backdoor stance. In the next section, we're going deeper into the structural issue underneath all of this, why even users who've never heard of a technical capability notice are affected by the same key holding problem, and then we start walking through the first of 3 alternatives that are built, so that this entire scenario simply can't happen to your data, no matter what any government demands. Let's pick up exactly where we left off, because before we get to the alternatives, you need to understand why this problem isn't limited to UK users, or to people who've ever attracted government attention in any way. Here's the structural issue in plain terms. Under standard iCloud protection, without advanced data protection turned on, Apple holds the decryption keys to your data by default. Not has access if it really needs to, holds them right now for the vast majority of iCloud users on the planet. And here's the detail that should genuinely surprise you if you didn't already know it. Advanced data protection is opt-in. It is not the default setting on your iPhone, your iPad, or your Mac. Most iCloud users have never gone into settings and turned it on, which means most iCloud users today are relying on a system where Apple technically can decrypt their photos, their backups, their documents, if presented with a legally valid request. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's the architecture, confirmed by Apple's own documentation and its own transparency reporting on government data requests. So think about what this means practically. Even if you've never lived in the UK, even if you've never been remotely close to any legal proceeding in your life, your default iCloud protection depends entirely on trust. Trust that Apple will resist future pressure the way it resisted the original worldwide UK order. Trust that no other government follows the UK's playbook and issues its own narrower, quieter demand, and trust that Apple's stated policy stays exactly the same as legal and political pressure shifts over time. That's 3 separate points of trust standing between your private data and a scenario just like the one we walked through in Section 1. And to be fair to Apple, the company genuinely has fought this fight in court and lost the specific battle over UK-only access, which does say something positive about its intentions. But intentions aren't architecture. A company's willingness to fight is not the same thing as a technical guarantee, and that distinction is exactly why a growing number of people have decided they don't want to depend on it anymore. So let's actually get into where they're going. Alternative number 1, and honestly, if you only remember one option from this entire video, make it this one: Proton Drive. Proton Drive represents the clearest possible departure from everything uncertain about iCloud's model. It is end-to-end encrypted by default, not an opt-in feature buried 3 menus deep that you have to remember to switch on. From the moment you create an account, your files are encrypted on your own device before they ever leave it. By the time your data reaches Proton servers, it's already locked, and Proton does not hold the key to unlock it. The decryption keys stay on your own trusted devices. This isn't a policy promise. Proton, structurally, cannot read your files even if a government orders it to, because the company was never given the key that would let it comply in the first place. Proton was founded in 2014 by a group of scientists who met while working at CERN, the European Particle Physics Lab in Geneva. What started as a privacy-focused encrypted email service has grown into a full ecosystem with well over 100 million accounts, spanning Proton Mail, Proton Drive, Proton VPN, Proton Calendar, and Proton Pass, all resting on the same zero-knowledge foundation. Jurisdiction matters here just as much as architecture, and this is a point worth slowing down on. Proton is headquartered in Geneva, and Switzerland has some of the strongest data privacy protections in the world. When a foreign government sends a legal demand to Proton, Swiss law governs how and whether that demand can even be processed. That gives you 2 independent layers of protection stacked on top of each other: the technical layer, where the encryption makes your data mathematically unreadable to Proton itself, and The legal layer, where Swiss jurisdiction makes compelled access a genuinely difficult ask for any outside government. And unlike a private company's internal claims, Proton's code is open source, meaning independent security researchers can, and regularly do, verify that the encryption actually works the way Proton says it does. Proton also commissions regular third-party security audits, so this isn't just trust us, it's independently checkable. On the practical side, Proton Drive covers what you'd actually need for a real migration off iCloud. Cross-device file sync with desktop clients for Windows, macOS, and Linux, automatic mobile photo and video backup, password-protected sharing links with optional expiration dates, file version history so you can roll back accidental changes, and a clean web interface you can access from any browser. Now, the honest trade-offs, because no option in this video is perfect, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Proton Docs, the collaborative document editor inside the Proton ecosystem, still isn't at the same depth as Apple's Pages or Google Docs for heavy real-time team collaboration. If your workflow depends on multiple people editing the same document simultaneously all day, you may notice that gap. Proton's mobile apps are functional and improving quickly, but they're not quite as polished or as fast as Apple's native iCloud integration just yet. These gaps are shrinking every quarter as Proton keeps shipping updates, but they exist today, and you should weigh them honestly before switching. On pricing, as of mid-2026, Proton Drive Plus runs around $4.99 to $5 a month on an annual plan for 200 GB. Proton Unlimited, which bundles the entire ecosystem, storage, VPN, mail, calendar, and password manager, together comes in at roughly $10 to $13 a month depending on the plan and any current promotional pricing. A family plan spreading several terabytes across multiple members is also available, sitting in a genuinely competitive range against what Apple charges for iCloud family storage, while offering a fundamentally different privacy guarantee underneath it. The verdict on Proton Drive: it's the right call for individuals and families who want the cleanest possible break from a key-holding model, who would rather have an entire privacy ecosystem than a single storage app, and who want their protection backed by mathematics and Swiss law rather than by a company's promise about how it intends to behave under future pressure. That's alternative one. Next, we're covering the option built specifically for people who want maximum encrypted storage per dollar. The third option designed for professionals and small businesses that need audit trails, compliance certifications, and the kind of granular control a personal iCloud account was never built to provide. Let's keep going, because alternative number 2 is the one a lot of people end up landing on once they actually compare the numbers: sync.com. Where Proton wins on ecosystem breadth and brand story, sync.com wins on pure value and simplicity, applying that same zero-knowledge encryption model specifically to cloud storage, at a price point that makes it one of the most accessible, genuinely private options on the market today. Sync.com is based in Toronto, Canada, founded back in 2011, and it offers end-to-end zero-knowledge encryption as its default setting, meaning the exact same core principle applies here as with Proton. Your files get encrypted on your device before they ever leave it. Sync.com cannot access them, full stop. And that also means Sync.com cannot be compelled to hand them over in a readable form because it was never given the key that would let it comply. The company is HIPAA compliant and GDPR compliant, certifications that matter. Because they add external accountability on top of the architecture itself, someone else is checking that Sync.com actually does what it claims. Where Sync.com really separates itself is value. Current reviews from 2026 consistently place it as one of the best storage per dollar options in the encrypted cloud space, routinely offering more raw storage than Proton at a comparable price. Individual plans start in the neighborhood of $6 to $8 a month for around 2 terabytes of fully encrypted storage, which, compared to what Apple charges for iCloud plus storage at similar tiers, is a genuinely significant amount of protected space for the price. Family plans are also available, covering up to 5 users under one account. On features, Sync.com supports file version history, shared workspace collaboration tools, secure link sharing with password protection, and expiration controls, and solid desktop sync clients for both Windows and macOS, along with mobile apps for iOS and Android. For most people, migrating away from iCloud purely to protect their files and backups, that covers the core use case completely. The trade-offs here are worth being upfront about. Linux support isn't as fully built out as Proton's desktop client, so if you're running a Linux-heavy setup, that's a real consideration. And collaboration features are more limited compared to what you get through Apple's Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, or a full Office suite. If you're a heavy user of Apple's productivity apps and lean on real-time document collaboration constantly, Sync.com is best understood as a storage and backup replacement rather than a complete workflow replacement. It does one job extremely well. It doesn't try to do everything. The verdict on sync.com. It's the right choice for individuals and smaller families who want proven zero-knowledge encryption at the most practical price per terabyte, who don't need or want an entire bundled ecosystem, and who value strong compliance credentials like HIPAA and GDPR alongside maximum storage for their money. Now for alternative number 3, the one built for people whose data actually needs to survive an audit, not just a personal privacy scare, Trezorit. If Proton Drive is for privacy-conscious individuals and sync.com is for people chasing the best value, Trezorit exists for professionals, freelancers with client confidentiality obligations, and small businesses that need the highest tier of encrypted storage available, paired with independent verification and enterprise-grade access controls that go well beyond what a personal iCloud account was ever designed to offer. Trezorit is headquartered across Switzerland and Hungary, which gives it dual jurisdictional protection, sitting under both Swiss privacy law and European Union data protection regulations at the same time. It offers end-to-end encryption across all stored files, and it holds a distinction that genuinely sets it apart from most competitors in this space. Independent reviews note that Trezorit passed a cryptographic implementation analysis conducted by researchers at ETH Zurich, one of the top technical universities in Europe, without critical flaws being identified. That's not a marketing claim. That's the kind of academic-grade security audit that carries real weight in the security research community. Trezorit's access controls are also more granular than anything iCloud offers. Organizations can set permissions down to the individual, file and folder level, deciding exactly who can view, edit, download, or share specific content. A more recent feature update, referred to in the industry as Trezorit Engage, introduced centralized activity logging, tracking exactly who accessed which files and when, generating audit-ready compliance reports that matter enormously for regulated industries like legal, healthcare, and finance. Trezorit is HIPAA compliant, SOC2 Type 2 certified, and offers configurable data residency, letting organizations specify the physical region where their data actually lives. Now the trade-offs, and they're significant enough that Trezorit isn't the right fit for everyone watching this. Cost is the biggest one. Trezorit is genuinely more expensive than both Proton Drive and sync.com. As of current 2026 pricing, personal plans start somewhere in the range of $12 to $14 a month for around 1 terabyte, and business plans climb considerably higher from there into the $14 to $19 per user per month range depending on the tier. That's a real premium, and if you're an individual user without regulatory obligations, it may simply be more than you need to pay. Linux desktop support has historically lagged behind Proton's, though recent reviews note Trezorit actually offers a fuller native Linux GUI compared to Proton's more limited command line only approach as of earlier this year. So check current app support directly before deciding. And while Trezorit's sharing and collaboration tools are strong in a business context, it doesn't offer the same breadth of everyday consumer apps that the Proton ecosystem provides. The verdict on Trezorit: it's the right choice specifically for professionals and small businesses handling sensitive client or patient data in regulated industries that require auditable compliance documentation, or for anyone who wants the most independently verified cryptographic implementation available in commercial cloud storage today, and who's willing to pay a premium for that certainty. So that's all 3 alternatives laid out. Proton Drive for the cleanest full ecosystem break, sync.com for the best value per terabyte, and Trezorit for compliance-grade professional use. But knowing which one fits you is only half the equation. In the final section, we're covering exactly how to actually move your data off iCloud without losing anything. What a fair, non-alarmist take on Apple's advanced data protection feature looks like if you decide to stay. And the real question you should be asking yourself before you put this decision off any longer. Let's finish this out, because knowing which service to move to doesn't matter much if the actual migration feels too complicated to attempt. So let's demystify it, because that difficulty, or the perception of it, is exactly what keeps most people from ever leaving, and it's worth saying plainly that inertia benefits the provider you're leaving, not you. Start with photos, because for most people this is the single biggest and most involved part of the move. Apple lets you download your entire photo library directly through iCloud.com, selecting all your photos and downloading them in batches, or through the Photos app. On a Mac, using the Download Originals to this Mac setting under Preferences and letting everything sync locally before you export it anywhere else. If your library spans thousands of photos across many years, don't try to do it in one sitting. Spread it across a few sessions and back everything up to an external drive before you upload it to your new provider, just as a safety net. Documents and files sitting in iCloud Drive are actually the easiest part of this whole process. They export as a completely standard Folder structure, which every one of the three alternatives we covered can accept through simple drag and drop, no reformatting, no file conversion, no compatibility headaches. iCloud device backups take a bit more thought. Moving away from iCloud backup generally means switching to local encrypted backups through Finder on a Mac instead, which, worth noting, are actually more secure in one specific way than iCloud backups, because they never leave your physical possession at all. On your iPhone or iPad, the settings you need are all inside the iCloud section of your device settings, accessible through your Apple ID at the top of the Settings app. You don't have to sever everything at once. You can disable syncing category by category, photos, contacts, calendars, notes, messages, documents, migrating each one individually as you complete it. Most people who make this switch successfully do it as a staged process over 2 to 4 weeks, moving their most sensitive data first, financial documents, health records, private notes, and leaving lower priority content for last. That approach avoids the kind of disruptive gap in your daily workflow that makes people abandon the migration halfway through and just go back to what's familiar. Now, before we wrap up, I want to be completely fair about something, because this video would be incomplete and honestly a little dishonest if I skipped it. The situation with iCloud is not black and white, and presenting it that way would be doing you a disservice. If you turn on advanced data protection today, right now, on your existing iCloud account, wherever you live outside the UK, you do get genuine end-to-end encryption across the categories that matter most. Apple cannot read that data. The architecture improves substantially the moment you flip that switch. And for a lot of people, especially those deeply embedded in the Apple ecosystem, relying on seamless handoff between iPhone, iPad, and Mac every single day, keeping advanced data protection turned on and simply staying on. iCloud might be a completely reasonable decision. I'm not here to tell you that's wrong, but here's the honest caveat that has to sit right alongside that. It's opt-in, and the overwhelming majority of iCloud users have never turned it on. It was pulled from an entire country under direct government pressure in February 2025. And as we covered earlier, that situation didn't cleanly resolve the way a lot of headlines from August 2025 suggested it did. As of where things stand in 2026, UK users still don't have advanced data protection available to them, following a narrower government order that a tribunal ultimately allowed to stand, with legal challenges from privacy organizations still ongoing. Even with the feature enabled anywhere in the world, you're placing your trust in Apple's ability and willingness to keep defending that protection under whatever legal pressure comes next, in whatever country decides to try next. That's the actual distinction between iCloud, even at its very best setting, and the three alternatives we walked through today. Proton, Drive, Sync.com, and Tresor all offer something. Apple's model, even fully switched on, structurally cannot. Protection that doesn't depend on a company's ongoing decision to maintain it, a government's willingness to back off, or a legal fight playing out in closed tribunals over many months while your data sits in a weaker state the entire time. Their encryption exists at the architectural level. It isn't a policy, it isn't a setting someone can quietly narrow the scope of next year. No legal order, however cleverly rewritten, can change the underlying mathematics of how these systems work. Your photos, your documents, your financial records, your most private conversations, these represent actual years of your life. They deserve to sit somewhere that's structurally, not just promisingly, committed to staying yours. Somewhere that can't be legally pressured into reading them. Somewhere that was never handed a key it could be ordered to use in the first place. So here's what I want you to actually do with this video, not just watch it and move on. Pick one option from the three we covered. Today, based on what actually matters to you, full ecosystem, best value, or compliance-grade protection, and take one real step this week. Even just exporting your first folder to see how the process feels. And here's my honest question for you in the comments. Are you sticking with iCloud and turning on advanced data protection? Or are you making the full switch to one of these three? I genuinely want to know which way you're leaning and why. If this actually helped you understand what's really going on instead of just adding to the noise, hit like, subscribe if you want the next privacy story broken down the same straightforward way. And I'll see you in the next one.